a.m. Pacific, or 8:05 GMT. That close co-elliptic burn will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station, meaning we're maintaining an orbit roughly 10 kilometers lower than the station the entire way around the Earth. That's in contrast to only being 10 kilometers below the station during Dragon's apogee, or the highest point in its orbit, which is what our boost burn is doing right now. The close burn will be a long firing of Dragon's Draco thrusters, with the burn expected to last 10 minutes. But like we said before, we're currently in the boost burn, which has about 2.5 minutes remaining. This burn is raising Dragon's orbit to just 10 kilometers lower than the station.
And we currently have about 2 minutes remaining in that boost burn.
This boost burn is utilizing the Draco thrusters that are located on the forward bulkhead, which is the very top portion of Dragon around the service section. Just about 30 seconds remaining on this boost burn, which is the second of 5 burns that Dragon will complete.
Dragon SpaceX boost burn is complete. Nominal burn.
Dragon copies, and looks like the next burn in about 38 minutes.
SpaceX copies and concurs. Next will be the close burn per your forward view display.
And that was confirmation from the crew down to the core, Arthur, confirming that we had a good boost burn, and they are looking forward to the close co-elliptic burn coming up here in about 38 minutes.
That close co-elliptic burn is coming up at approximately 12:05 a.m. Pacific, or 8:05 GMT. And like we said before, this will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station, meaning it'll be maintaining an orbit roughly 10 kilometers lower than the station. After completing that burn, the crew will be able to get some breakfast.
And as Kate mentioned breakfast, we also want to discuss that the crew is eating breakfast because they are on Greenwich Mean Time. That is the time that is used on the International Space Station, and that is the time they've adjusted to meet their crew in space. So for them, it is the Greenwich Mean Time, and it is not 11:21 Pacific Time or 1:28 Central Time. They are on the Greenwich Mean Time right now, and they will be eating breakfast right after that close burn at 12:05 a.m. Pacific Time or 2:05 a.m. Central Time.
Live view there of both mission control at Johnson Space Center as well as SpaceX SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Live coverage of Crew-3 mission operations as the crew is on its way to the International Space Station. Immediately after Dragon separated from Falcon 9 earlier this evening, it began what we call the activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. During this phase, Dragon is configured for on-orbit operations. The phase begins after separation of Dragon from Falcon 9 and ends with the completion of the final co-elliptic burn. Our initial orbit today was 190 kilometers by 210 kilometers, with those values representing the perigee and apogee of the orbit, or the lowest and the highest point over the Earth. That means that the orbit actually isn't a perfect circle, but more like a very slight ellipse.
Over the course of 22 hours after liftoff, Dragon will execute a series of burns, which will gradually raise its orbit to align more closely with the station. There are 5 major burns or firings of the Draco thrusters on Dragon that will bring the spacecraft close to the station before we begin final approach maneuvers. The first major burn that's already passed today is going to be the phase burn, which is performed at the first apogee or highest point of the initial orbit and raises Dragon's perigee or lowest point to a higher altitude.
The next burn, which is based on what our orbital data shows us, is the boost burn, and that raises Dragon's orbit until its orbit reaches an altitude just 10 kilometers lower than the space station, and that's the burn that we just completed. Soon, in a little while, we're going to have the close co-elliptic burn, and that will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station. This means that the crew will be about 10 kilometers lower than the station during their entire orbit around Earth. The fourth maneuver is the transfer burn, where we're raising Dragon's apogee, or its highest point of its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers below the station. And we round everything out with a final co-elliptic burn to once again maintain a constant orbit beneath the station, this time just 2.5 kilometers below.
Then we'll get into the approach initiation and final stages of Dragon's rendezvous with the space station. This is also when we start integrated operations between the Dragon control team in Hawthorne and the mission control team here in Houston. The teams will transition to integrated operations roughly 45 minutes prior to approach initiation. During the approach, SpaceX flight controllers will work in tandem with the NASA team in Houston to activate and test out a number of systems on Dragon, including bi-directional communications with the station using the C2V2 system, which stands for Common Communications for Visiting Vehicles, and sets up a data stream from Dragon to the station, giving another path for Dragon telemetry to come to the ground and giving an additional command capability to astronauts aboard the station. They'll also maneuver Dragon to the proper attitude and initialize the navigation sensors used for the methodical approach to station.
Tomorrow at approximately 2:40 p.m. Pacific Time, or 22:40 GMT, the Draco thrusters on Dragon will fire for the approach initiation burn when Dragon is about 2.5 kilometers below station and just about 7 kilometers behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's about 400 meters directly below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of 2 safety zones around the station that requires a set of go, no-go poles with the different control teams. The first zone is called the approach ellipsoid, or AE, and it is basically an imaginary shape measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. Essentially a large 3-dimensional oval. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside the ellipsoid, it's configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. This means that if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters, that it would be at least 24 hours before its orbital path would take it inside the approach ellipsoid.
Once Dragon arrives at 400 meters below station, it will be at waypoint 0, which is the first checkpoint during our approach. The vehicle can hold at 400 meters or continue on if all systems check out to approach to waypoint 1. By this point, the teams will do a go-no-go for Dragon to move inside the keep-out sphere, another zone that consists of an imaginary sphere around station with a radius of 200 meters. It's another chance to confirm all of the guidance, navigation, and control systems are working correctly on Dragon before moving closer to station, and carries a requirement similar to the AE that Dragon's orbital trajectory would not bring it inside that sphere and if it lost control, but this time only for 4 orbits, or about 6 hours instead of the 24.
Dragon's move from waypoint 0 to waypoint 1 will swing it up and out in front of the station, pausing at a distance of approximately 220 meters. At this point, it'll be on what we call the docking axis, which is essentially the spot right in front of the docking port. The crew is headed to the forwardmost port on the International Space Station, the Node 2 forward port. That's where Dragon is docked for all of our NASA commercial crew missions thus far. Harmony, or Node 2, is where both of the international docking adapters are located, or IDAs. These were installed for new commercial spacecraft flights and any other future spacecraft that also uses the International Docking Standard.
Once Dragon is only 20 meters away at waypoint 2, the spacecraft focuses on aligning its docking system with the docking adapter. Dragon will then fly in and make contact with the docking adapter, giving us what we call soft capture. The soft capture ring then retracts until sensors indicate it's time for hooks to drive in place to give us a hard capture and firmly secure Dragon to station. Then it's time for leak checks and hatch opening, which is currently timelined to come about an hour and 40 minutes after docking.
5 views of Earth coming to you from the International Space Station. We're following along the action with Crew-3 as they are making their way to station. We are 22 minutes away from the next event, the close co-elliptic burn. The upcoming close co-elliptic burn will last about 10 minutes, and it will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station, meaning that we're maintaining an orbit roughly 10 kilometers below the station all the way around the Earth. Dragon will be utilizing its Draco thrusters to perform this maneuver. The four forward bulkhead Draco thrusters are primarily used for these bigger delta velocity maneuvers, whereas the 12 service section Draco thrusters around Dragon's base are for attitude and low impulse translational control, meaning they help Dragon maintain its position as it approaches the space station in a very precisely controlled approach. And we're about 19 minutes away from that close co-elliptic burn, which is the third of 5 major burns that Dragon will perform tonight.